All right, that sounded half-hearted. Let's try it one more time. Did you have a good Scala days? All right. All right, so this is a tradition. We always ask the Scala team questions at the end and just, have a fun discussion, good times. I'm the master of ceremonies, so I don't get to... What? Yeah, I know. I'm the destroyer of ceremonies. So I've traditionally always asked the same question to these guys every time we start. So I guess I have to ask it because they actually prepared an answer this time. But we're going to start off introducing the Scala team and people in the Scala community, and we're going to have them answer 3 questions. So the first question is, what is the first software program that you have written and why, ever? The second question is, what is your favorite American beer? And the third question, yes. That one is specifically for Adriaan. The third question is, what is your favorite marsupial? Go ahead. Start. Go ahead, Jason.
Answering backwards, my favorite marsupial is the quokka. That's a real thing, look it up.
If you can figure out how to spell it.
Mm-hmm. The first program I wrote, I think, was something to say Jason rules in a loop in BASIC. My dad had an early computer running his company, and he had to get an expensive consultant in to stop that program because it didn't terminate. The third question was?
Your favorite American beer. That one's not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just do them in the regular order. I don't know why you do it that way, Jason. What was the first one again?
All right, maybe we should do one more
No,
time.
just kidding. Okay, so my first program ever was on an MSX. I typed it in from a magazine. It took me forever. And then, well, no, I'm sure it would have worked, but then somehow someone tripped over a power cord or something. We didn't need a consultant back in the day. And it was all gone, and so I was really upset. And I'll always remember that 30 years later or something. Anyway, so that was a good introduction to computing. Yeah, exactly. We got a cassette thingy afterwards that we could save programs to. That was great. Anyway, my favorite, beer, American beer, none.
Okay.
Being Belgian, this is the only possible answer. And my favorite marsupial today, for you, Josh, is the bilby, with the Latin name Macrotus or something like that. Which kind of sounds like...
Well, that's a long Latin name.
Yeah,
Macrotus or something like that. Can I Google that?
I mean, for obvious reasons, it kind of sounds like macrotis.
Oh.
So, anyway.
I'm Seth. This is my first week on the Scala team.
Yeah, welcome, Seth.
Thank you.
Did you pick a favorite marsupial yet?
So
this is the Typesafe hazing ritual.
we actually had like a 20-minute conversation on this topic that included Martin. So we're like totally prepared for this. For me, it's definitely the opossum because that's the American marsupial. I like Sierra Nevada, and I also started on Apple II Basic, but I don't remember my first program. I do remember the first program I failed to write, which was I tried to teach myself 6502 machine language by writing John Conway's Game of Life, and I could not figure it out.
Such is life.
Yeah.
And the beer?
Sierra Nevada.
So I'm Sebastian. I'm the Scala.js author. So my favorite American beer, I don't think I ever tasted any American beer. So I'm afraid that would be none as well. So the first program I ever wrote was a Euro Monopoly. That was in C on the Windows terminal. It had ANSI colors back then. And it even had an AI, so you could play against the computer to the Monopoly, which was quite horrible because it was all console based. And anyway, that was my first program. And, oh, my favorite Marsupial. So I'm not a Typesafe employee. Maybe I don't have to answer that question.
Okay. We do, unfortunately.
You can
So
choose.
I didn't do any reading. So the only marsupials I know are the kangaroo and Marsupial. So I suppose that would be Marsupial.
So Miles, you can choose any fluffy animal at this point. I think we've exhausted all marsupials.
No, there's plenty more. You should look on Wikipedia. It's fascinating.
I was gonna go for koalas. Is that their marsupials?
Yeah, they are.
The infamous drop bear that kind of you have to be careful they don't land on your head or whatever, something like that. Okay, so I'm Miles. I guess I'm shapeless and type level and that kind of stuff. Koalas, I've done that. What's left? Beer. I have drunk beer in America, and I can't remember what I've had. That could be a really good thing or a really bad thing. I'm not sure. So I'm going to kind of, it's existentially quantified. It's hidden. First program was a complete fail. I had literally no idea what I was doing, and it was on I do remember it though. It was on a friend's TRS-80 Model 1 computer, which was kind of, this is going back a long way. And I don't think he knew what it was supposed to do. It was sort of the home computer. And I thought computers, they're clever. They can work stuff out. A maths problem. Can you tell me the answer? What is x if x equals x squared plus 1? So I just typed in. So this was kind of like TRS-80 basic kind of prompt or something, x equals x plus 1, and it totally gave me the wrong answer. I was utterly disillusioned, and I was convinced that computers were obviously rubbish, and they were no good at proving things. So I guess I'm kind of slowly inching my way towards
shapeless.
Persuading. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of.
All right, so the general format for this is we want you guys to come, ask Scala questions. You can also ask slightly unrelated questions if you feel like it's fine. But let's try to talk about Scala, and we'll just have the panel answer. So there's a microphone right here. People can queue, and we'll just go in order of the queue.
Moderator, I
Yes.
have a question. Can I break the format a little bit and
No.
stop? No.
Yeah, what's your question? You have to go stand in front of the microphone.
Yeah. Okay, well, I maybe I'll just fall off the stage like Martin and crawl my way to that other microphone. No, I just wanted to ask you something, but first tell you something. So thank you, everybody. Well, for coming, obviously, that's not really my job, but thank you for the growing contributions that we're seeing in Scala, and sorry for sometimes being overwhelmed by the volume. That's, I guess, a really good problem to have. And I guess my question is, please tell us how we can make that more fun and more enjoyable for you, more efficient for you. That's kind of something that we've been thinking a lot about and putting a lot of energy into. I just wanted to say that we really appreciate all the contributions, and keep it up and let us know how we can help you with that. So now you may ask questions.
Oh, and also if you don't come up with questions, I get to ask them personal questions. So that could be fun
Well,
too.
that was not in my contract.
No, the point is to get them to ask questions,
Yes.
not the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have a flight coming up soon, so I might as well.
This is the question for Miles. How are you, or how are we getting on with type level Scala?
Yes, well, I'm glad you asked me that question.
Is that your answer?
So as people may have noticed, there has been a little bit of a hiatus with the type level Scala since it was announced. There have been a number of kind of interesting developments in the type level community since then. The dust, however, is gradually settling, and things are working themselves out. And the type level Scala project is imminently rebooting itself. I think reboot is probably fair to say that is what's going on. However, we have just recently, as of FlatMap in Oslo, we've had an offer of donated hardware for a renewed CI server for type level Scala. And so, I mean, this basically we're at the point where we're getting the infrastructure back together again. I'm currently working on some cats and shapeless related things. I want to get to the point where I can publish a hopefully useful and easy to contribute library for deriving type class instances for cats using shapeless. Once I've kind of got that kicked off, my plan is to spend as much of my spare bandwidth as I have working on a number of type level Scala projects. In particular, I want to pick up the work that Adriaan's done on the literal singleton types fairly urgently. I've also got a couple of other things which I want to make some progress on as soon as possible. So it's kind of it's been on hold and is about to resume. So that's the current status.
So does this mean that you're now a cat person?
I guess cats sort of duel to dogs in some way or another. I don't know. Is
they're both pets. So will there be a dog library?
Sorry?
Will there be a dog library coming from type level?
I've been trying to work that in, but I can't work out how to do that yet. There should be.
Okay.
If I can make it happen, it will.
I look forward to it. And for those who don't know, Cats is like a implementation of type classes, or category theory type classes. Yep. Cool. We have a question.
Yes. So Scala.js excites me. When are we going to see the next platform for Scala, and what will it be?
The next platform beside the JVM and JS, you mean?
Yeah, definitely besides the JVM, yes.
So I think the next one is going to be LLVM. So we have Dennis here working supposedly on that. So which I think is also very good. Yeah, but not in the coming month. It will take quite some time, I suppose.
Can you clarify the question? Did you mean like the next one to take off, or the next one to be also developed?
The next one to be developed, and what is the approximate timeline? Okay, that's kind of the question.
So, what then about iOS? Do you also think about it? iOS. So I heard that Apple is going to open source Swift, and maybe you can use this bit.
React Native.
I think that is one of the motivations for wanting to do LLVM as a target, if I understand correctly.
So I heard there was a patch where you put NS in front of every single method name in the standard library. Is that true?
Sorry, there was a what?
So, but to seriously answer the question with another approach, there are people developing an extension to Scala.js React for React Native, and with that you can actually compile Scala to JavaScript and talk to your iOS native framework. So you could do it that way, and people do it that way. Some of them.
So there was a Scala roadmap posted some time ago, and many of the features, there was a lot of activity, or at least a lot of, we heard a lot of things, but one feature where I didn't hear anything from it yet was the improved support for tuples or H-lists. Is there any, do you have any idea how you will pull this off? As far as I understand, the existing H-list implementations are just very, very slow. So what's the approach there?
Is this a question for Miles? No. So, but it's on the roadmap, but not for 2.12. And given that 3/4 of the team is sitting here, and the other quarter is on the way back to Zurich, yeah, we kind of have our hands full with Java 8, which I guess is the most exciting part right now. And then, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be space for some compiler native support for something like HList and something like, scrap your boilerplate, sum of products, views on case classes and things like that. That's actually what got me into Scala 10 years ago almost. And so I'm really frustrated I've never actually managed to solve that problem that started my PhD. That's why I rage quit academia and joined Typesafe. Little known fact, this is why you come to Scala Days Amsterdam. Please don't tweet that like the variance thing, it's really embarrassing. No, I mean the short answer is it's on the roadmap, and we've actually been pretty conservative, I think, with things we put on the roadmap. It's when we genuinely think we're going to be able to implement it. And I think we're doing pretty well for 2.12. That one is further down the line, but I would really like to see something like that. Yeah.
My own point of view on 2.12 is that the compatibility constraints that are already decided on between 2.11 and 2.12 needing to stay source compatible means that there isn't too much too interesting or radical that can happen in 2.12. So that just means that 2.12 is a release that we should that we'll all be working together on getting out there as soon as possible, so we can start thinking about more exciting things maybe for 2.13.
Thanks.
So I guess I probably sound like a broken record, but I am on record saying that I think we need less standard library rather than more. I would prefer not to see H-lists appearing in the standard library, if only because I think it would be, and I'm hopefully going to be proving that it's premature, because it turns out that there is a much more interesting, much higher level abstraction that basically means we don't have to commit to any particular underlying kind of concrete H-list type without really any significant performance penalties. And this is something that I hope to be working on for Shapeless 3. I think if an H-list actually had sort of made its way into the standard library, I think actually it would be a mistake. If the stuff I'm working on pans out, it'll be possible to use just nested pairs as perfectly acceptable H-lists, or nested ithers, interestingly, as similar kinds of structures. And I think that's the best way to go. My preference is that people should coalesce around an ecosystem of open source projects. There's no reason why this stuff has to be in a standard library if people converge on external projects and use them and support them. And Adriaan, I think if you want to do generic programming stuff, I know a project that could do with some help.
Well, so I fully agree, and I hope that the tweet had room for the first word in my sentence, which was support for. and yeah, I mean, that's what we've been waiting for 10 years now, is like, what is the essence? Like, what that's always what we think about in Scala, right? Like, how can we compile this down to a set of well-defined method calls, like for comprehensions, or, how do you virtualize pattern matching, or, how do you do apply dynamic? All these things really have pretty simple semantic, or boil down to pretty simple semantics, because there was this one key lever that we found and that we then expose. I agree that you shouldn't hard code H-list or something like that, and then just clutch something around that. But if we can find a mechanism to do type level computation, for example, or to provide some hooks for a well-defined set of common ones, deriving type classes like you were alluding to, yeah, let's figure that out. I agree. And when it comes to not growing the standard library, we're all fully on board with that. We have our hands full maintaining what we have now, and as you all know, we spent a lot of time modularizing it, and it's great to see all those modules take off, find maintainers that are motivated to cut their releases and triage issues and merge pull requests. And I think most of our modules are actively maintained, so that's really great. And we would like to continue that, of course.
I was actually going to ask, because I think this is a good follow-on. What's the plans for modularization with Scala 2.12? What kind of things do you actively see happening?
Right. So 2.12 is a compiler release, so we're not really going to change anything about the library, especially because with 2.11 and 2.12 likely coexisting for a longer time in order to support Java 6 and Java 8. I mean, obviously Scala 2.12 won't support Java 6, so 2.11 will be a little bit longer on our radars. So, but 2.13 will be a library release. We're alternating them to bring focus to our activities, but also to make it easier to upgrade every time. And so there, we're looking at the collection libraries to slim those down and provide alternative or at least a factored out implementation of lazy and parallel collections.
I'd like to just give a shout out to the SLIP process, Scala Library Improvement Process. So this is ramping up in preparation for library changes, whether they're additions or removals. For 213, Dick Wall is leading that effort. There's monthly meetings happening online. So if you're interested in seeing something happen to the standard library, that's the new process and the new venue for that.
Thanks. Go ahead, sir.
Hi. Any idea for how to enforce by choice immutability, including through other libraries that you use? Like, let's say, I don't want to have thread local in my things. Something like the current features imports that we have to say.
I don't know that you can do much about that short of running programs and instrumenting them and looking for bytecode patterns. I guess you could statically analyze some of these features as well, but you'd very, very quickly find a universe of methods that you can't call from the Java standard library, especially when you're just calling a method like toString on an unknown receiver type. So it's not until runtime you know where that binds to and whether that's having a side effect. So to be honest, I don't think that the sort of JVM is designed with that sort of purity in mind. Nor Scala. So there's languages which start from the opposite assumption that everything should be pure. But that's not something that's available in the JVM at the moment.
But speaking of enforcing more generally, there's Abide, which is our lint tool, which is actually one of the things on the 212 roadmap that is kind of slipping because of just lack of time on our part, not lack of enthusiasm. So if you want to enforce rules on your own code, that's the vehicle. It runs after type checking. It knows everything. The compiler knows about your code. And there are a lot of rules in there already. There hasn't been an official release simply because we just don't have the bandwidth to maintain it and answer questions around it. But the source is there, and people are using it already, I guess relatively quietly because that's just where the project is, unfortunately. But it's very usable. And then in the longer term, Martin talked about this briefly in his keynote about using the idea in the future of actually using capabilities to model effects, which I think is promising because it fits better with the mental model of saying I'm consuming this capability rather than I produce this side effect and now everybody downstream suffers for it and how am I going to track this statically? Whereas you can kind of pinpoint the places where you need to consume these capabilities and make sure that they flow into that point. So I think that's a very interesting thing to explore. But I mean, ultimately these are all tangents to your original question where I agree with Jason where we just don't want ultimate immutability. You just don't want it globally or outside of a reasonable module.
I'm working on a syntactic extension to Scala, and there are multiple of these possible and probably be useful. I would like in the new compiler, the Lottie compiler, the ability to replace the parser by my own plugin. For instance, a parboiled 2 based one, and to produce my own AST nodes with my own transformations to the regular AST nodes. And can you provide support, and are you willing to provide this support?
I think this idea of parser macros or syntactic macros was discussed during the 210 design a little bit, but fairly quickly ruled out as something that has too much of a risk of fragmenting the language. So there's a lot of benefit to having a uniform syntax across Scala programs that you read. Syntax highlighters, things that can deal just with parse trees, like source code format is just generally the tool ecosystem. doesn't have to know what sort of dialect it's looking at. So, even seemingly simple things which would violate this constraint, like if we allowed you to, for example, specify the precedence or associativity of methods, which is something that's an annoying limitation. That limitation exists for the reason that it supports this ecosystem of tools around Scala, because the grammar is fixed. You don't have to know what this method is to know how to parse calls to it. So I can imagine that the compiler might offer you hooks in a sort of unsupported way to do this, but I don't think we'd be sort of comfortable as proposing that as a platform to let lots of variations on the syntax sort of blossom.
Just to kind of pitch in with a slightly different note on that, the type level project is probably quite a good place to experiment with that kind of stuff if you want to do that. I mean, I think we've fairly deliberately constrained ourselves to trying as far as possible to maintain compatibility with a mainline Scala release. But we very definitely want to see experiments, and that absolutely includes experiments with replacing the front-end parsing, tweaking syntax, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, it's not reasonable to expect the Typesafe people to work on this kind of stuff, because they have their own projects they have to work on. But the Scala compiler, it's open source. Fork it. This is a good thing, and I think the more experiments that are done in that kind of general department, the better.
And for experiments that specifically involve parsing and syntax, once we have Tasty, then those sorts of experiments are going to get a lot easier for third parties to do.
I also want to say, just not that I'm on the panel, but don't discount tooling. It takes a long time to build up good tooling.
Don't discount the humans. It's not just about the tools understanding it, because ultimately when you have Tasty and Scala Meta and stuff like that, those tools could run those plugins or those macros and could work with them. But then think of all those poor programmers who will be reading your code, and unless you have a very well-defined extension that makes a lot of sense in your domain, I think it's a huge risk. And I mean, just to nuance what Miles said, I mean, we absolutely welcome that experimentation. It is open source. We embrace that. I mean, we see ourselves as setting, where we think Scala should go, and we're very welcome. We absolutely welcome people to experiment. RCI recently, we revamped it to run on EC2 to have more capacity for experimentation and all that. And we have a long history of X and Y flags with all kinds of craziness in there. So I just wanted to nuance that I do think that Scala has enough variability in the perceived syntax by the different ways that you can invoke methods and so on. So on that level, I wouldn't really be too on board with changing or bringing more potential divergence into how we read our own code, a day, a week, or a month from now.
So if I can sum that up, you should experiment and try things and prove that it works, but you should also try very hard to get it into core Scala so you don't have to rewrite all of the stinking tools around it.
Yeah, I just want to add something. The JVM became a standard for a multitude of languages. I think the Scala compiler can become something as well for a multitude of languages with Scala as a basis. I
think part of the goal of Dotty and Tasty is that Tasty could be a target format for other front ends. I guess what you're suggesting is a little bit different, where you want sort of the untyped ASTs of Scala to be a target for a dialect. There's probably not a use case which was given as much design thought, but I appreciate the thought. Yeah.
This is a slightly loaded question, but how will you stop people using Scala 2.10 when 2.12 comes out?
How or whether?
How will you move people off from Scala 2.10 to stop you having to support 3 different versions concurrently?
We'll support people using old versions if they need to, but we'll support them to move as well. So we can't, we didn't put a time bomb in the release that will make it stop working, unfortunately. We didn't have that foresight. So what we're trying to do is minimize the pain of going from 2.11 to 2.12. I think we did a similar job minimizing the pain going from 2.10 to 2.11. Maybe macro authors don't agree with me that much. We're proactively building a lot of open source projects. I think we're up to about 1.5 million lines of code on the nightlies of 2.12. So we're catching regressions and unexpected consequences of changes that we make. So I think just making the upgrade path as smooth as possible is the carrot, and we don't have a stick.
Well, we have a commercial one. Yeah, I know.
One of there may be a silver lining to the binary incompatibility cloud that we've all suffered with. It's like, yes, it makes it more painful for you to stay on old stuff. But the good news is that everyone has to keep moving forward, and that actually has a lot of positive aspects for the whole community.
I'd like to know how you guys got to be so awesome. Of course I was kidding. No,
Turn off that microphone quickly.
Got that off, Mike. So obviously I'm interested in the whole problem of like distributed data computing, with Spark and all that. And there's a couple of, concerns that you guys are probably well aware of, and I was just curious about how you think they'll be addressed going forward. One is the classic problem of closures that capture data, part of a class or something that's not serializable and can't then be sent over a cluster, which is a thing that Spark has to do. And I guess the other would be just the general performance of, like floating point computation or, collections in general. What sort of things do you think need to be done to improve this kind of stuff? But the immediate one is like the closure issue.
Well, that's an easy one. Question 1, spores. Question 2, spire. I don't know why they both start with SB, but maybe someone wants to elaborate. Okay. I don't know. Sorry.
How do you want to address the issue of fragmentation if you encourage forking, and I think there's even official forks and whatever, and then in, let's say, 5 years there's like 20 versions of Scala around, and then you have a Scala program, it runs on this version and this on this.
So Typesafe has a special task force that comes and find you and destroy your computer if you try to actually publish that fork. Okay, that was just a joke. Just to be clear. We contract that out.
The type level project is hiring a sort of private militia to resist these.
Exactly, that's contractors. No, so yes, that's like obviously what keeps us up at night, and why we stay friends with Miles. No, we're absolutely. I'm very excited to see all these incubators, and I think it as a completely positive thing. I think it's great to galvanize the excitement and experiment, and we want to be involved from the start and be clear about what we think is feasible for inclusion in mainline Scala and what isn't. And our understanding is that if we have that discussion out in the open with everybody as soon as possible, we can all agree kind of direct democracy style on what Scala is. And I strongly believe that that's in everybody's interest, that there is a Scala and that we will never have to qualify. By the way, we own a trademark. Again, that's not a joke, but no, I think we're very, a lot of us, everybody got into Scala because we like experimenting with languages. And then, we saw the potential, and that's why you were all here. And I think that responsibility of making sure that you can all stay productive with Scala means that we need to make sure that we can unify and rally around Scala. And that's a discussion. That's not, we obviously, we're the stewards, and there needs to be a unified voice. And Martin is sitting back there to kind of have, to not make sure that everybody's like, I have a question for Martin. But yeah, I think that's very important, and that doesn't mean that we won't listen. We are listening, and we are doing the implementation work, for example, on the ideas where we think that's worthwhile. But certain things we'll have to say no. To certain things we retroactively said no to ourselves when we introduced things earlier on in Scala that turned out not to be great ideas. Having lived through the pain of deprecating and removing those things, and then telling lots of people, sorry that we removed your favorite feature, but everyone else, was hurt by that. I think it's really important similarly to not adding gratuitously to the library, we also shouldn't add gratuitously to the language. That doesn't mean we wouldn't add to it at all. And now, after this long rant, I'll let Miles.
No, I think that pretty much covers my view as well. I don't think it would make a great deal of sense for a fork of Scala to end up looking and having exactly the same semantics as Idris. I think if you want that, you should just use Idris. So it's pretty much clear. If you're bothering to fork Scala, it's because actually you care about Scala to some extent or another. And I think that I don't think that any of the people who are involved in type-level Scala have anything other than the greatest respect for the work that's been done on both the mainline Scala compiler, the stuff that's been done on Dotty, Scala.js, and the various other variants of the Scala programming language. I guess the way I want to express this is that I think we should just not think in terms of fragmentation. This isn't fragmentation, it's diversity, and diversity is a healthy thing. It's the sign of a healthy ecosystem. I think the worst thing that could happen to Scala is that it just becomes trammeled into a single line of development which is very, very heavily constrained by the interests of one particular group or organization, and that is entirely at the mercy of the fortunes of that one particular group. I think that if we have multiple avenues of exploration, I think the chances are that a successful kernel core of the Scala community will be able to kind of incorporate stuff from all over the place and continue indefinitely. With a viable, exciting, vibrant ecosystem of successful stuff. I think the road to doom and decline is something that tightens down on that kind of idea too much. But yeah, I think we're in agreement pretty much.
I think so too. Yeah, yeah. I would love to see a further diversified panel next year.
So who's going to be the first to fork Scala.js?
So just a random comment. We're talking about these forks not really being forks, but being experiments. And we did mention that the features in 2.12 are, spires and spores. Does that mean that these forks should be called sporks?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh. Well, I think, Miles kind of preempted my question, which I think is good, but also to give a perspective from outside the Scala world, I think we see from inside, and this conversation came up with somebody who's now working on R, I think, and he said, yeah, to him, Scala feels like it's Typesafe. And that's why he's not interested in experimenting with the language. So I think when you're inside, you realize that that's not the case, but the perception from the outside is different. There's not much of a question there. He also said his code keeps breaking every single day because they change the language, which maybe isn't exactly where you want to be. So my question, was just an observation, is Scala on mobile? It's a question I've asked a few people, but I'm just curious to hear. Should we do it? Should we not do it? Is it coming? What's the?
Do you mean like an automobile?
On devices.
Okay, Scala on phones, Scala on tablets, phablets, fabulous phones?
Yeah, so as I said before, the current answer to that is so Scala for Android. It works. So I mean, I've heard quite a few reports saying that Scala on Android it works. It's nice, and for iOS to go at least at the moment through Scala.js, but. Well, so now do we want a native target for Scala on iOS? And I don't know. I think at this point we should see what how good can the existing stuff do? How well can it perform, and how well can it integrate it with the platform? And if that proves insufficient, fork welcome, I guess.
Or Spark.
Okay, so Java 9 will ship with this new module archive format. And while it's not quite interesting yet to emit bytecode for Java 9, as far as I understood, it's an issue for IDEs and compilers to run on Java 9 because there are not necessarily any jar files anymore, but also these Java module files. What's planned in this direction? Thanks.
Yeah, we've looked at that a little bit. From what we've heard from the JDK lists, there's some means to mount these module files as like a sort of virtual file system abstraction. To do that, we need Java 8 to run the compiler. Now we have that on the 2.12 branch. So, that's one of the things we'd like to work on, although it's not a requirement for 2.12.0. So it might be something that we add in 2.12.1, for example.
But if you start depending on Java 9 APIs, won't the compiler won't the compiler have issues running on Java 8?
I think the APIs are in Java 8. I could be wrong, but...
All right, okay, thanks.
Hello, my question actually refers to Java 8. There are plans to make Scala closures and anonymous function works with lambdas, but I couldn't find any reference to using virtual extension methods to extend the capacity of Java classes to actually extend traits. Are there any plans on that?
Yeah, for sure. So default methods are a great new tool that we have. So just for everyone's benefit, in since Java 8, Java interfaces need not have purely abstract methods. They can have a default implementation. They were added to Java 8 so that they could sort of enrich the API of existing methods in the collections hierarchy without forcing, unknown subclasses to implement these new methods. In the Dotty compiler, they're sort of, I think, doing what you're describing already. So you can use default methods for the bodies of methods in Scala traits. It has a few advantages. Binary compatibility, for example. We can add a method to a trait with a concrete implementation, and we don't need to recompile all of the subclasses to mix in that forwarder. So that's a clear advantage. As you said, it means more classes are likely to be suitable to be functional interfaces, so Java code can naturally just use Lambda syntax for those. So that's definitely on the roadmap for 2.12. The first step is just doing as much as we need to get function 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 22 set up with default methods so that they can be functional interfaces.
Thank you.
We have time for one or two more questions, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe one more.
One more, yeah.
If nobody has a question, I get to ask a question.
I think it's time to close the session. Can I have, or wait, maybe I should formulate it as a question. Is it time?
Is it time? Yeah. All right.
Oh, we have a question.
Okay.
Actually, I have an extension of the question on the mobiles. Dotty and 2.12 will target Java 8, and the linker will require Dotty. which is insanely useful for Android development because it's so much smaller, except Android only accepts JDK 7. So...
Yeah. Yeah, I bet we're not the only ones going to Java 8. But, as I said in the beginning, 2.11 is going to be around for a little bit longer. We've been anticipating that. And someone is implementing a tasty middle end, I like to call them, for tasty. As I understand it, the linker also requires some more stuff that's currently only implemented in Dotty, so it's not just tasty that they use, it's also more, parts of the Dotty pipeline. But in principle, with some more work, you could backport first the tasty backend for 2.11, and then the linker on top of that.
Or just go straight to Dex, because it sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's also possible that if we're emitting, invoke dynamic Lambda creation, that some post-processing of the jar files could actually kind of create the anonymous function classes ahead of time. That won't help you if we start from the standard library calling APIs which are only available in Java 8. So there's the two sides of it. We'll probably be a little bit more conservative with that in some cases, but on the other hand, we'd really like just to use the fork join library from the platform rather than using our fork of the fork join or a spork of the spork join.
Spork join, yeah. So we do have one.
So I'm not actually here to ask the question. I'm here to answer the previous one.
That's Dimitri who did the linker work.
I'm the Dotty linker guy. Okay, so we're not in any sense different from all the Java 8 ecosystem because all the libraries that are now compiled for Java start to use this. And even in Java world, people start to create the post-processing things that post-process Java 8 bytecode to make it compatible with Java 6. So I guess by the time when linker will be live, either Android guys will actually start supporting this stuff, or there will be something from either Java community or Scala community which will allow you to just take the thing that Dotty generated or linker generated and retrofit it into Java 6. At least that's the thing that we expect to happen.
Awesome. So everyone send an email to Google. Say, please, Java 8 bytecode. It's a thing. You should know about it.
Yeah, maybe if you overload their email system, they'll pay attention.
Yeah. Send each other emails, too, because then they'll find out about it. All right.
Hey, well, I'm heading home.
All right, so I just want to thank you guys for being up here. Thank you for all of the work that you do for Scala, and thank everybody for coming here. It just was a great Scala days, and it's always awesome to see everyone. So just thank you.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we're done.